Introverts, how did you meet your girlfriend? She came over to me in a coffee shop while she was on vacation in my country to ask how to tip. We had a 2-hour conversation and then an amazing 5-hour lunch. 2 days later, she complained about her hostel and I offered her my spare bedroom. She accepted. Nothing happened. Although it seems crystal clear in retrospect that we were falling for each other, I didn't want to be douchey and make her feel uncomfortable under my roof, so putting the moves on her was not something I seriously considered. 2 nights later, I had to be gone for most of the night on a work assignment, and I asked if she would please watch and walk my dog in my absence. I came home at 5 a.m. and was greeted by my suddenly very soft, very fluffy dog. She had somehow understood, "Will you please wash my dog?" and apparently didn't find that a strange request at all. The next evening, after talking over a bottle of wine for hours, it seemed she'd had enough of my apparent indecisiveness, took the wine glass out of my hand, put it down, and leaned in for a kiss. That was 26 years ago. We've been married 23 years. Gamers of Reddit, what are the strangest things you've heard over an open mic? Was getting full-on cussed out by a kid easily around 5 or 6. He was literally saying, "Fuck you, you fucking cunt. I hope Satan rapes your ass and his splooge gets in your shitty eyes, you stupid little ass fucker." So we started firing back at him with everything we had. We kind of made him cry. Then his mom got on the mic and starts yelling at us. She's telling us how we're setting a bad example for her child and we shouldn't be using that kind of language around someone his age. So we went off on her too, explained that her kid was being a sailor-mouth little shit. She started yelling at us, saying that her kid can do whatever he wants. So we said that if he's gonna talk shit like an adult, then he's going to have shit talked back to him like he's an adult. She gets even more pissed. This is the best fucking part. I'm still laughing about this. The fucking grandmother gets on the mic and starts spouting off to us. She says that her daughter is a fantastic mother and we need to leave them alone or she's going to call the police. We managed to piss off a kid so badly that we got yelled at by 3 generations of that family in the span of a few minutes. God, it was fantastic. Police officers of Reddit, what criminal actually impressed you with their criminal skills? Saw this one on one of those police chase shows. Police dash cam showed the car in front of him was swerving all over the road in the middle of the night. He followed him for a while, then flipped on the lights to pull him over. Guy pulls over, and before the cop can do anything, he turns off the car, gets out, throws his keys in the woods, cracks open a brand new 5th of vodka, and chugs the whole thing down. Cut to the interview of the actual criminal with his voice and face obscured. He says he's already had multiple DUIs and has become something of an expert on drunk driving laws. He took advantage of a loophole wherein the cop didn't have time to see if he was actually drunk behind the wheel of the car. Chugging the vodka right there would immediately have an effect on any sobriety test. He hadn't opened the vodka in the car, so no open container infraction. And he made sure his keys were most definitely out of reach, so there was no way that he could be operating a vehicle under the influence. Didn't know whether or not to be impressed or disgusted with his drunken ingenuity. Parents, what secrets do you know about your teenager that they don't know you know? Here's what your parents know. Sitting under the blanket with a boyfriend or girlfriend on movie night is almost always an attempt at concealing groping/touching. Hanging out in the garage, basement, or old playhouse actually means we're going to do drinking, do drugs, make out, dry hump, or experiment sexually. You have a secret stash of slutty clothes. Your toilet bowl tank is actually a terrible hiding place, so is the top of the door frame inside your closet. More parents know about keylogging than you think. Clear the history as much as you want, it doesn't make a difference. When you come home at night after partying, we can smell the cigarettes, pot, perfume, and booze on your breath. You can eat an entire tin of Altoids and bathe in Febreze, you still stink of your crime. Adults are nothing more than grown-up teenagers. We know the game very well because we played it too. What is 100% worse when wet? Paper bags. Unless you're trying to describe someone useless or bland, gremlins, power sockets, hamburger bun. Wait till you hear about the wet hamburgers in Turkey. Wait till he hears about Krabby Patties and SpongeBob. Your bed when your kids are sleeping next to you. Yeah, I'd rather pee myself in peace too. Shoes, and you can feel the water slosh inside of them. I read an account from some polar explorers in the 1800s. After a days-long grueling hike through a blizzard, one of them was complaining that his shoes were sloshy and wet. When he took them off, he saw that the slosh was in fact his dead and liquefied frostbitten flesh that had fallen off the sole of his foot and created a kind of man soup with the moisture from the melting snow. So, could be worse, I guess. What is a survival myth that is completely wrong? Rescue breaths are wildly overrated in most movies and TV shows. You'll see someone in cardiac arrest and the rescuer will stop giving compressions and focus on breathing into a person's mouth. And blammo, awake, alert, alive. Nope. Don't do that. Your body does store a fairly decent amount of oxygen in its blood at all times. If someone collapses in front of you of a suspected cardiac arrest, your plan of action is twofold. 1. Are they breathing? Do they have a pulse? My rule is that if you don't feel it in 10 seconds, it's not there. Start compressions. If they are not in cardiac arrest, they will let you know. 2. If you are the only person attending to this body, do not stop and give rescue breaths if help is on the way and will be there soon. It takes about 4 to 7 decent compressions to get blood recirculating in the body after stopping to give mouth-to-mouth. If you're a long way out from help and you feel safe to do so, give rescue breaths, but it should never be priority 1. What should you never do on a first date? Don't dump out every single unappealing thing about your life on a first date. As an example, on a first date, a guy disclosed to me that he's living with his parents who are homeless and refuses to move out of his apartment, so almost all his income goes to them. He has zero sex drive and he struggles with severe body image issues. He also had plenty of great qualities, and if I'd had a chance to slowly get to know him, we may have been able to navigate around some of that stuff, but honestly, it was way too much to process all at once. I also have my own family, medical, mental health S to deal with. I just didn't dump it all on him in one day. So all I could think about was how much of his S he was asking me to take on, and I didn't even know him. I ended up not accepting a second date, then watched him post about how women won't give him a chance on social media. I felt bad because he's a really nice guy and he's absolutely sabotaging himself with that first date etiquette. Teachers, what weird conversations have you overheard in a class you were teaching? I worked as a substitute teacher off and on for years. When you're a substitute, kids often don't care what they say in front of you because you are gone the next day. I think 5th grade was about the time that you couldn't so much as mention a pencil without it being turned into a sex joke. Like, ask to borrow a pen and the rest of the day is spent being called gay for wanting another guy's pen. I've heard middle-aged school girls discussing proper BJ technique. I've heard a group of elementary-age students discussing the dead body they found in the woods. I've heard several times at different ages groups of kids discussing drug deals and where to get the best stuff. But by far the most screwed up thing I've been involved in was another group of middle school age girls discussing me and what I would be like in the bedroom. I'm male and marginally attractive. Basically, they were sizing me up and talking about all sorts of rather graphic things towards the end of the day. When I asked them why on earth they would be talking about this sort of stuff at their age, they gave me a blank stare and just laughed. What's the smallest lie you've ever told which had the biggest consequences? Once when I was around 6 or 7, my mom brought home some chocolate and gave some to me. I stole the bar that she had saved for my stepdad. She asked what happened to it. Blamed the Duncan, our dog, knowing that he often eats things off the counter. I didn't know at the time that chocolate was toxic for dogs. My mom goes terribly pale and rushes Duncan to the vet. I felt terrible about this as I thought it was just because he stole the chocolate and was some form of punishment. The next day she brings home more chocolate. Nobody told me that it was for Duncan's own good that he was taken to the vet, so feeling bad for doing this to Duncan, I gave him my chocolate this time thinking he deserved it. Later that night, my mom told me how bad chocolate is for Duncan, so I decided to tell the full truth. So another late night trip to the vet. Now the twist is that the very expensive vet trips cost a lot of money, which prompted my mom to take a look at our expenses. She found that the then stepdad was hiding an affair and then got a divorce. What made the high school legend become a legend? Our history teacher was ex-military, and he was absolutely jacked. Like, this guy would bike 10 miles every morning to school, kept an ab roller in his classroom, would eat salads and beans for lunch every day, the whole shebang. Anyway, one day he gives our class a pop quiz. Jeff, the strongest, biggest guy in my class, goes up to him and asks, if I can punch you in the stomach and make you flinch, the entire class gets a 100 on the quiz. My teacher took him up on it. He prepared himself and Jeff absolutely drills him in the stomach. Our teacher did not flinch. We still had to take the quiz, but Jeff went down in history as the guy who punched a teacher, and the teacher went down in history as the guy you don't want to effing mess with. What is the most awkward question you've ever been asked? You look strong. Can we wrestle? A man in the grocery store. When I was about 13, my mom and I were watching a parrot demonstration in front of a rainforest cafe. Another woman watching turned to me and said, "May I?" Immediately, with no further explanation, she took a strand of my long hair and held it out to the bird who bit it. I was just standing there with my hair in a bird's mouth. We didn't know what to do. One of the weirder things that's happened to me. I have no sense of smell, and multiple people have seriously asked me why I have a nose. Women of Reddit, what thing do men do that frighten you without them even realizing it? 3 years ago, I matched with a guy on Tinder and agreed to meet up with him. He suggested going to a park, and when I got there, it was a heavily wooded area with a trail, and I stupidly followed him into the trail. We walked around for a while, sat on some rocks, then it started to get dark and we decided to head out. But we ended up getting lost and not being able to find the exit, and we stumbled upon a grave-sized hole in the dirt. And at this point, it was pitch black, and I was thinking it was all a setup and that I was going to be ambushed. I pointed out the grave-sized hole, and he seemed scared too, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt and stayed quiet. We finally found an exit after about an hour of stumbling in pitch black darkness. We're still dating to this day, and I brought up what a horrible date plan that was, and how it came off the wrong way, LOL, and he said he didn't realize it at the time.